Hi, welcome everyone. My name is Juniper. I'm the managing producer for Feldenkrais Access, and I'm so happy to be here with you all for the live chat for the Secrets of a Healthy Neck with David Zemach-Bersin. David, would you like to say hello before we get started?
Hello to everyone, and thank you for being here. And I look forward to addressing any questions you might have.
Awesome. So we got a few questions in advance of the live chat today, but if you have a question, please do go ahead and write them into the platform that you're joining us from, either YouTube or Facebook or Instagram. And this live chat is an opportunity to ask any questions that you might have about the upcoming program, which will begin this Thursday, April 11th, with a live class that is free. So please do join us for that. And please write in any questions that you have. And I'll get started with the first one, which is, I have a fused cervical spine. Will this class series be okay for me?
The classes will be safe for you. You'll need to take care of yourself. You'll need to not do anything that gives you strain. And in that sense, and I will, throughout each lesson, I will be um, addressing the lesson in such a way for you to inhibit you from doing too much and straining yourself. But I think you should be fine.
Wonderful. And we've just gotten some questions in already, so I'm going to read some of those now. Petra on YouTube is asking, Dear David, I wonder about the loss of neck and lumbar lordosis and stress response. Is that why people develop flat back during childhood development too? Would there be other reasons?
Oh, that is a fantastic question, and I don't know the answer. My best guess as to children, infants who don't develop a lumbar curve is that they have not spent time or enough time lying on their stomach. And that was a theory, if you remember, about preventing SIDS was that children shouldn't be lying on their stomach so much because that was the children who did die. Unfortunately, they were all on their stomach. So, but um, if children don't have that lumbar curve, and I will say that if the lumbar curve is diminished, that makes it very difficult to also have a sufficient cervical curve. And both of them develop at the same time in infancy. So, and it's during that time on our stomach that our lower back those muscles get developed, the lumbar curve gets developed, and I begin to lift my head to orient my eyes, my teleceptors to the horizon, and that helps to develop the cervical curve. So both of those curves need experience in order to develop. In other words, there is an underlying genetic aspect to both curves, but they both need experience to develop in the healthiest and optimum way.
Thank you so much for that excellent answer. C. Dodd writes in that she is 80 and she's wondering, sorry, I should say they are 80 and they are wondering if this class series will work for seniors.
Absolutely, absolutely. Everything that we do in this series should be accessible to you. Accessibility is our middle name here at Feldenkrais Access. And to that end, we will have somebody doing the lesson for each class in sitting. So in other words, if it's difficult for you to lie on the floor, if it's difficult for you, for example, to lie on your stomach, and even on a mattress, it's uncomfortable to lie on your stomach, then you can not only do the lesson in sitting, but we'll be helping you and guiding you doing the lesson in sitting.
Wonderful. On that note, Fiona has written in to ask, or to write, they have chronic fatigue. They have severe chronic fatigue, which affects especially their chest, neck, and head. I most likely will have to lie down for the sessions. Will the series be suitable for me?
Again, yes, if access isn't the right word, then I'll say that adaptability is our middle name. In other words, we will work with you to find a way to adapt the lesson to your particular needs. So we always have extra staff who are available to answer your questions during the lesson. So I think we can take care of you.
Absolutely. And if you can't join us for the live lesson, you can always write into the platform on which the programs are streamed. So you can always reach us regardless of whether you come to the live class or not.
That's right. And we'll be having probably 3 or 4 question and answer sessions just for the class and questions that arise during the class. And you're welcome to submit any questions that way.
Great. I'm glad you raised that. It will be 3 Q&A sessions with the members of the class. Laura wrote in to ask, is this class different to liberate your neck and shoulders?
Yes, I think that's a great question. Though we may do a lesson from that series, my thinking has expanded. I'm very, very enthusiastic about this class series in particular because I have updated my thinking on the importance of head and neck mobility and healthy orientation in space, and that really wasn't the focus of Liberate Your Neck and Shoulders. So although obviously any improvement in our neck and the organization of our head and neck is going to at the same time improve my shoulders, the comfort of my shoulders, the organization of my shoulders. Yeah, this class will be offering you different material.
Sorry, we're getting so many questions, which is wonderful. I'm so glad that so many of you are joining us. I'm really excited. One question that we got is from Jillian, who asks, they are new to Feldenkrais and they're asking, can we just sign up to the first free class just to try it first before committing to the full course, please? And
guess what,
thanks.
Jillian? Guess what? That's why it's free. It's free so that you can come and not only answer the question of, is Feldenkrais useful or appropriate or beneficial for me, but to experience my teaching and to see if my teaching is kind of in agreement with you. So yes, absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you, David. Nava writes that they fell when they were riding on the bus. They're still healing and nothing got broken. They're wondering if this class will help with their neck.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, we're doing 8 lessons in this series. So some lessons will be more profound for you probably than other lessons. Some lessons will go right to the heart of your challenges or difficulties or discomfort, but all of the lessons will have a general beneficial value for you. Without over-promising, I think you'll notice a difference after the very first class. And that reminds me of something which about the general value of Feldenkrais lessons, which is that very often when we injure ourselves, there is a general inflammatory response on the part of the body, and part of the body trying helping us to recover, to rebuild tissue, to rebuild the parts that have of ourselves that were strained, injured. And so this is part of recovery. But often when we are injured, that inflammatory response lasts much longer than the injury itself. And to that point, I think every lesson, or I should say, I'm confident that every lesson we do in this class series will have a general anti-inflammatory effect for you or benefit for you.
I'm glad you clarified that, David, further, because we got a question from someone who's asking about long COVID, that they have been struggling with long COVID for 2 years, and that neck pain is one of the many symptoms that they live with. And they're wondering if this class series will be beneficial for them.
Well, again, based on my experience working with people who have long COVID, the answer is absolutely yes. And this really very much, I think, ties into the answer to the previous question about the inflammatory response. So I'll tell you a very quick story because we don't have a lot of time. But last week I saw someone with long COVID, and part of their symptoms was an inflammation of the optic nerve. They were having trouble with depth perception. They were having double vision, as you can imagine, very, very disconcerting. And I gave her a lesson, and lo and behold, all those symptoms disappeared. Now, did all those symptoms disappear because of things I did? Maybe. That she did with me under my directions. But I think that also the lesson helped her body to stem or inhibit that inflammatory response. And I think that many of her symptoms were tied to the inflammation of the optic nerve. So I think that's a real, I think, important and potent benefit of the lessons. I think all Feldenkrais lessons in some way bring our body into more of a parasympathetic state. In other words, more of a relaxed state, move away from the habitual stress response.
A question along similar lines is in regard to vestibular issues. Would you recommend this series for someone with vestibular issues or concussion?
Well, again, absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. And you will need to learn, and I will help you to take care of yourself and to not do anything that is provocative, in other words, provokes instability. So, but I feel that the class will be a safe place for you, and that because our neck becomes very involved in these postural reflexes having to do with the inner ear, and I think you'll feel the benefits very quickly.
Great. Thank you, David. And Nava wrote to thank you for clarifying about inflammation in relationship to this class series. Karina has a question about the neck. Orienting response and trauma. My guess is that Feldenkrais for the neck can help as an adjunctive trauma treatment. Do you have anything to share about this subject?
Well, there's almost too much to share, but I think you're right. And if I could just talk about it for a moment in general terms. So when we think of a habitual, meaning chronic stress response, I mean, you can substitute, when I say stress or anxiety, you can substitute the word trauma, and I'm good with that. So when we habituate, which most of us do, most of us who have experienced trauma, the trauma happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but there's ways in which it is still present today. And that's what we mean by we habituate to that stress response, because it was so powerful and so necessary that we be on a state of high alert. Now, part of that response is that we protect ourselves, and it's millions and millions of years old, and we see it in all animals. There's a tendency to pull myself down, protect my chest, and pull my head and neck forward. Now, when we habituate to this, to whatever extent, it completely changes the organization of my musculature, my breathing, my abdomen, the way my weight is distributed through my pelvis down to my legs and feet. There is no aspect of myself that isn't, in many ways, influenced or determined, you might even say, by this universal biological response to trauma, to stress, to anxiety. And so as these lessons are structured in a way where you will feel yourself beginning to have a healthy organization of your head, your head will gradually come more to sit on your spine the way it was intended to. And thus, the way in which the trauma is present in your every moment of the day will get less and less so, I believe.
That's wonderful, David. We got a question from someone on Instagram who is wondering if you have any book recommendations to learning the Feldenkrais method, for anyone who's not available to do this course. And I'm sure you have a great answer, but I'm going to jump in first before you start, just to say that even if you can't come to the live class, it's available on demand. So if it's a time constraint that is restricting your ability to do the course, then that can be negotiated through doing it on the platform on demand. But that also, we have scholarships available, and that no one need ever feel that the programs, that this program in particular, but that any program is inaccessible to them because of a financial restriction, that you could please do reach out to us for a scholarship, that we very much want that to be a thriving program.
There's that concept of accessibility.
Accessibility.
Again.
I know it keeps coming up. And I also just want to mention that the YouTube channel has a lot of free lessons as well, and that we have programs available on the Feldenkrais Access website that are for free. So please do check those out. Send a message here again if I didn't answer one of your questions that are the reason why you can't do the course. And then David go on.
Now,
Sorry, back to the first question.
Yeah,
Any
go
book
ahead.
recommendations to learn Feldenkrais method for anyone who can't do the course?
Sure. There's a book by Dr. Feldenkrais, a brilliant book, a very profound book called Awareness Through Movement. There is a book by myself and my wife and another practitioner called Relaxercise. That's I believe 10 lessons that are can be done mostly in sitting. And then there are audio programs through Feldenkrais Access. We have maybe, I don't know, getting close to 20, 25 programs. And again, the operative word there in what Juniper was saying was scholarship. So just, and that would go even for the products that we have. We're happy to make them accessible, affordable to you.
Great. We have some follow-up questions from Jillian, who was asking about trying that first free class. They are wondering if the Feldenkrais differs from the Alexander technique or if it's similar.
Great question. Alexander predates by a decade or so Dr. Feldenkrais, the development of his work. And the Alexander technique is mostly, not solely, but mostly a hands-on technique. So rather than what we're doing, the Feldenkrais lessons we're doing, you can do yourself, you know, in the comfort of your home. You can also do them in classes with many people lying on a floor. And Alexander technique generally, not only, but involves one teacher and one student, or one teacher touching and moving a group of students. There's some difference in, I think, fundamental ideas about the head and neck organization, but we don't need to get into the weeds, so to speak. And I only have positive things myself to say about the Alexander work.
Great. Jillian also writes to ask if this program would be helpful for tinnitus. Can you say something about tinnitus?
Tinnitus or tinnitus is a chronic ringing in the ears that can be quite intense or very muted. It can be irksome and bothersome, a serious irritant to some people, and something that just takes place in the background for other people. I think this class series is probably not going to address directly tinnitus and solutions for tinnitus. If you do have tinnitus, you can write to us at communications@feldenkraisaccess.com. You can see if it can be helpful to you. Now, that being said, when somebody has acute tinnitus and chronic tinnitus, it can tend to affect the organization of our head and neck. Why? Because there's something going on internally that I'm sensing that I'm having an adverse reaction to. In other words, I'm having a negative reaction to it, and that's affecting my body organization, and that is most likely causing a lot of tension in my neck. So from that more indirect point of view, I think the classes will be very helpful.
Great. David, I want to let you know that Fiona, who'd written in about her severe chronic fatigue, is saying that they feel so much more hopeful after listening to you and that they resonate very much with what you said. So
Yeah,
it's
I
nice.
think you can be more hopeful. And I do agree that with chronic fatigue, inflammation is really part of the problem. And I think in that department, you can have agency, you can affect that inflammation in, I think, in very significant ways. And by effect, I mean reduce.
We have a question on YouTube again from Matt, who writes, the great discovery of Feldenkrais is the ability to take command of the conditioned writing response to the stress flexion behavior. Is that correct?
Oh, thank you, Matt. Personally, having studied this work and thought about this work for 50 years, I think there are a lot of insights on Dr. Feldenkrais's part that are brilliant and of usefulness to us in how to help people to have less pain and to relearn functions that possibly they have lost, and to improve our lives in the general sense. Now, but his insights about the conditioned response to fear and anxiety, you are right. They are absolutely brilliant, and in many ways lie at the core of much of his thinking. In other words, that many of us, and might I say probably most of us, experienced anxiety, fear, difficulties when we were young. And we did, to a larger extent or a smaller extent, habituate to that response. And I want to hesitate here, Matt, if you will, in using the word conditioned, because conditioned means something that takes experience and learning. The anxiety or fear response is almost reflexive. In other words, it doesn't take a period of conditioning, of apprenticeship, of learning. So the response to fear is there when basically from the day we're born, maybe even in utero for all we know. And that is this massive contraction of the flexors, this pulling back, inhibition of the breathing, inhibition of the extensors, the muscles of our back, and this rounding of the neck, which again we see in many people, and in fact we could say the modern version, right, is getting acted out. And this is a very interesting point for everybody, I think, or a value to everybody, I hope, which is, the modern expression of text neck, right? So text neck is the rounding of the neck, the head, our skull being pitched forward over the spine. And so you see young people, middle-aged people, older people having their head forward. And now this forwardness of the head, it in fact is part of that fear or anxiety response, what's called the sympathetic response. And now, is it possible that having my head forward, maybe I'm a happy, groovy person, And yet I'm spending all day looking forward at my computer screen, my phone screen. Well, after a few years of that, my head is forward all the time. And that inhibits it does exactly what Matt was referring to, of that almost reflexive, he used the word conditioned biological response to anxiety and fear. The same thing happens. I bring my head forward and my breathing is inhibited, and my respiration, my digestion is inhibited. All the things that happen in the stress response, I am brought into that. I'm brought into a state of organization that's very similar, even though I didn't have the quote trauma. I didn't habituate to fear or anxiety, but I'm here. And I think that makes me much closer, brings me much closer to feeling the sensations of anxiety or fear. So it can work both ways. In other words, and there's research showing this, that if you have people round themselves and look down, then after an hour or so, they begin to feel a little inklings of depression, of sadness, of grief. And likewise, if you have people come up into a more upright configuration and posture, they have more access to joy, to happiness, to feeling good about themselves and the world. So it's bi-directional. It's not unidirectional. So I hope that's helpful.
And I hope everyone who came today to the live chat will join us for the free class this Thursday on April 11th at 12 Eastern US time. That's all the time we have for now.
But
Sorry. Yes, go ahead, please.
I just want to say they don't need to come to the live class, because we'll have it. It'll be there for you on demand and streaming, or whenever you're available to listen to it.
That's right. If you can't make it to 12 p.m. Eastern US time, check out the YouTube channel, feldenkraisclass.com or Facebook, and you'll be able to watch the live class anytime. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Cheers, and look forward to meeting you.